Welcome to the podcast, John Johnson.
Welcome, John.
Thanks very much.
How's your day treating you?
Yeah, pretty cruisy today, mate, so far.
Very good. Good to hear.
You down in South Australia, John?
No, I'm in Queensland. I'm in Burleigh Heads at the moment. I sort of in between Townsville and Gold Coast at this stage. Obviously spent a lot of my time up in North Queensland over the years. I grew up there originally and then spent some time here on the Gold Coast, like in my 20s, and that's when Nathan and I sort of spent a lot of time together. And then sort of threw a lunge at the US, trying to get the BMX thing and the mountain bike thing happening at the time. And then I realised trying to race UCI races for no profit, you ran out of money fairly quickly.
Yeah.
Just had to sort of change the game plan a little bit, and I sort of retreated back up into North Queensland where it was comfortable and cheaper for me to live to get started in the aircon business. So did that for like 18 years or so, 17 years or so up there, somewhere around that. And then had a couple of heart attacks. So about a year and a half, 2 years ago.
I'm definitely not laughing at that, that's for sure.
Massive shock in some ways, and pleased to find out in other ways. Like probably was fighting some symptoms of it for like 10 years and couldn't really get to the bottom of a lot of things. And then obviously it's how you sort of process, the things that are happening at the same time. The added stresses, the high blood pressure, the high cholesterol, the chronic pain, that it was coming out in all these different sort of fashions. But every time I went to go to the doc and ask for tests, that nothing would really show. So other than the obvious kind of signs, which they thought was more environment based from business and stress rather than actually from my body and from genetics. So yeah, we kind of got a little bit of a false read on that, and it was very, very close in the end. Come down to about probably 30 seconds of air left on the table before it got to probably 5 minutes of stroke and cardiac arrest, I suppose, after that, before it lights out. So that's as close as I want to go.
Sounds like a crazy experience there. I mean, I just want to ask you a couple more questions. But like, when you actually had the attack, I mean, like, were you feeling the attack come on, or it just suddenly happened, and then all of a sudden you were in a situation? Like, what?
Yeah, it was really complex. So I've had sort of spinal problems and disc issues for this similar amount of time. So it was very hard to get a bit of a read. What I'd noticed and some of the symptoms of those back pains were muscle spasms in really strange spots, and never in the same spot twice on the same day or anything. It would either, come in the back of the shoulder, or it'd be in the lower back, or in the butt cheek, or, under the armpit, or it just sort of kept moving around. So to have something vibrating or like a spasm wasn't an odd feeling for me, because it was happening all the time. It was, sort of 2 or 3 times a day, I'd kind of get these odd feelings for 10 years. So over time, I've learned how to block it all out.
Sure.
So how I kind of came across that the issue was getting worse over the last couple of years is that I went to go and get my back looked at to get an L4-5 fusion. And the guy said I'd lost about 40%. I was down to 40% feeling in my left leg from a nerve conduction test. So I was basically couldn't feel my legs. They were kind of just diminishing in like touch and strength and everything. And we just couldn't really get to the bottom of the causes. So I was going in and I was burning nerves in my back to try to mimic a response. And we'd do all the pre-testing and it would look like it would work. And as soon as we burnt the nerves, nothing happened. And we just kept sort of going down these paths where I wasn't getting any pain reduction, and I was literally living on opiates, like just to be able to walk and get up and move around and function. You know, most of the time they don't necessarily do that much other than break your thoughts. It's pretty hard to hold your head, hold yourself together.
Men's
But
health.
yeah, over time that sort of all started to unfold. But when the surgeon sort of said to me, he put me on the blood pressure monitor and said, "Oh, hey, you know, check the vitals before he does his checks." And he said, "Oh, it appears that your blood pressure's at like 186 over 128. He's like, "What happened today?" And I said, "Oh, nothing. This is just a normal day." And he went, "Mate, that is not good." And I'd sort of just said, "Oh, well, yeah, I don't feel okay," you know, and that sort of threw me off a little bit. And then I went out and sought after a cardiologist report to say, you know, this guy wants me to get a sign off before I can get an operation. And they did all the heart testing like a month before my heart attack, and they said I was fine.
Oh, wow.
So they came back with a 10% risk, and they did find some calcium in my LAD, but it was only like a partial blockage and wasn't posing a problem. And they gave me some medication, and I thought it was all covered. So then fast forward, you know, another month until this day that it kind of hit me, and it was actually Melbourne Cup Day, and I was working, and I was like covered in sweat, and I was just trying to put a screw into a screw hole on the front of an air conditioner. Very basic task, but I just missed it like 6 times and kept dropping the screw down in behind this like stainless bench in the kitchen. I had to like get down on my hands and knees and pick it up and do it again, and I started to get frustrated. So like obviously my blood pressure was going through the roof, and then I was like, "Oh, I need to go and sit down. Like I can't think properly, like because my brain was just like sort of frozen. It just couldn't think, like ultimate anger kind of situation." And I just walked outside and sat down on the back of my van and had a drink of cold water. And that's when I realized that my heart was like, there was something in my chest spasming. And I thought, oh, it's sort of sharp, but it's not. It mustn't be a heart attack, because it wasn't really sort of knifing sharp at that point. And so I was like, oh, it must be just a muscle spasm in my ribs or something along those lines. And then after about 15 minutes, I thought, it feels like it's getting sharper. I think I should ring somebody. And as I stood up to like ring somebody on my phone, I'm not normally just do a little walk around in a circle. And as I stood up, it disappeared. And so I got off the phone at that point, and I didn't finish calling because it disappeared. And I thought, oh, it must have just been a spasm. So I went back to work, finished my job, felt a little better, and off I went. I did another 5 jobs that day, and then got home, told the missus and kids. And then she said, oh, do you think you should go and see somebody? And I said, oh, yeah, I will go and I'll see the GP tomorrow, because it's like, it feels fine now. And I don't think it was anything, but it literally was a heart attack.
Yeah.
And then the next day I went out to the north side of town, about sort of 30, 40 minutes north of town, to do a job. And I was at a client's house, and just as I was about to drive out, I could feel it. As I got into my car, it came back again. So I thought, oh, well, yesterday when this thing hit me, I just like relaxed a little bit and it went away. So maybe I just need some water, and it might just be, you know, some hydration issue or something. So I whipped through a Subway and grabbed some food and some water and cruised back to the office and laid down on the tiles in the office to try to like get rid of some heat. And obviously I was probably overheating a little bit. I didn't recognize that at the time. And then my shoulder blade started getting a bit sore, and I was starting to get like a little bit nauseous. And I thought, this thing's not going to let off like it did yesterday. And then I thought, what do I do? it's probably nothing, because it still didn't feel like a sharp knife. It just felt like a vibration in my right on my middle of my sternum. So I didn't even really feel like the heart as such. But then by the time I realised, oh, this could be something, I might just jump in the car and go to the hospital.
Yeah.
So I drove to the hospital, and then by the time I got 3/4 of the way there, I started thinking, "You idiot! This is starting to think like this could be something.
What could happen? Yeah.
Yeah." And then I pulled up at the car park and walked in, and I actually still had to line up for another 10 minutes, even though they say you shouldn't when you've got chest pains. I tried to jump the queue, but it was really busy in there.
Like,
So I was just like, at that time I was thinking I probably should have just called the 000 from the car park. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it would have been the easiest way in.
This definitely
then,
seems to be, men's health.
Yeah.
Men take it, take everything for granted. You know, I'm a small business owner myself. I have high levels of stress, dealing with employees, chasing pays, schedules. Your stress levels through the roof. You feel niggles and pains, and you think, stuff it, I'll do it tomorrow. And totally,
you put those things off,
almost the gift in the end. Like, it's just so damn close. Like, the rest of the story is like ballistic. I still didn't think I was like literally having a heart attack until like that. She put me in a wheelchair, wheeled me around the back, threw the ECG on. And then I've looked to the right, and there was a doctor came and introduced herself to me and said she was going to take me through some testing. And then literally she's grabbed her hip and jumped onto this sort of like sat phone looking thing that she had on her pocket and was like, rapid response. And I'm like, what the hell is that? Is that for me? And she's like, and then look, I looked to the left, and the chick that had put the triage nurse that left the counter to put the ECG on me, her hands were shaking and her eyes were like lit up like golf balls. And I was like, that can't be good. And then I said, oh, what's going on? And she's like, oh, it's not good. I said, you're probably better off telling me, because I'm better off knowing, because I can prepare mentally for it. And she's like, you're having a major heart attack. You're going for surgery now. And I'm like right now. And she's like, yeah, you've got like 15 minutes max. And I'm like, oh my God, my brain went hot, my whole body. I could feel the blood pump through down to my feet. And that was a moment where I sort of thought to myself, like, I had like a lead up of a few months where I was super stressed and I was kind of mega depressed because I wasn't getting any blood and oxygen through my body. And now it all makes sense. Like,
yeah.
Like at the time, I couldn't get to the bottom of what it was, because there's no real reason for me to be unhappy, and it's not something that is normally my personality even, but it just was definitely happening. And I just couldn't work out the cause. And then all of a sudden this shining light kind of came, and I was just like, man, like, I've got to ring my mum and my missus to let them know that what's going on.
Yeah.
And I'd only lost my brother in the middle of COVID from a heart failure as well. So it was I'd kind of had this like thing, well, how the hell can two of us get crook in the same year? You know what I mean? Like, that's out of control. Like, the odds of that happening is crazy. And I think that was really what sent me to the hospital in the first place. So yeah, so after that it was just, hit me with fentanyl, running through the corridors. I'm trying to fight them to call my parents, and they didn't want me to use my hands because they were trying to prep me for surgery. And I'm like, well, if I'm dying, I'm calling them. So I'd committed mentally in the bottom of the corridor before we started running through the corridors and up the elevator that I was probably not going to make it. So
that's crazy.
To be able to get through the other side of that, there was like a lot of meditative process going on the table, and closing my eyes, and every now and then I'd kind of open them up and have a quick look at the live scan that they can, because they drive, you're awake the whole time when they're operating on your heart, so because they put a stent in, so and then I ended up with 2 more. So yeah, pretty wild story.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. I mean, pretty wild. It's pretty much one of the wildest stories I've heard. I mean, like, even to our viewers and listeners out there, I mean, like having a heart attack like you did, I mean, hopefully, I don't wish this on anyone, but it's not like it is in the movies, is it? It's not where
No,
like all of a sudden, oh my chest, he's having a heart attack, and
yeah,
time for action. Like for our
yeah,
viewers and listeners out there, if you have any suspicions of health issues like that, get help immediately, and just understand that, you know, the process isn't just this immediate theatrical
yeah. It's
film.
not just like a bang and it's happening.
It's
Yeah,
not just I've had a heart attack and now I'm asleep. It's
yeah. It was.
a
It just
process.
slowly crept up on me. It was really unassuming, and obviously mine was from blockages. There's plenty of different types. Um, you know, especially since you know what has been around. So without going down that path. But yeah, like a lot of myocarditis, pericarditis, all the, you know, you've got a fibrillation issues. There's all these different types, which I'd heard of, but I didn't really know, you know, what they were and how to sort of deal with them. So yeah, I had to go through like a health journey after that, learn about what I should eat, what I shouldn't eat, and then you go out into the corridor and the rehabilitation ward kind of area, and then they feed you all the stuff that you just taught yourself that you shouldn't be eating. So it's quite funny, really. But
this is what makes it even more interesting there, John, is the fact that like you're a professional athlete yourself, you're a professional BMX rider, and we'll touch on that in a minute. And so like you know how to take care of yourself as far as fitness goes, and it just goes without saying that this sort of thing can happen to anyone. And so if the alarm bells are going off, you know, like, you know, go and get help, guys and girls out there.
Do
Like
something about it.
definitely just push that button and get help, and even find help. You know, it's not only just a phone call. Like if there's something wrong, go and knock on a neighbor, someone even you haven't even you may not even know them. Just let them know about the situation, because you don't know really what's going to happen. So
yeah, and definitely, I think even like, you know, even if you like see an accident on the road and innocent bystanders, everyone always tries to help. Like it's very rare. You know, our society is changing, but it's still very rare to have somebody fall over on the side of the road clutching their chest and nobody go to help. You know what I mean? Like, so, you know, don't ever be afraid to ask, you know, can somebody call, or, you know, call an ambulance instead of drive themselves to the hospital?
yeah,
It's probably not the best option.
probably not the best option there, John, to drive yourself to hospital. But hey,
but you know, ultimately, that's
you're
probably
unsure.
my coping mechanism is I can do this faster. You know what I mean? Like I can get there without putting anybody out. You know,
Yeah.
and I felt like I was fine. Like, and if I thought it was a heart attack, there's no way I would have driven. You know what I mean? Because like I was just expecting it to just go bang at any point. But you know, obviously, yeah, completely different to the way I'd perceived that it would be. So.
Prime example, I used to do Taekwondo, and I ripped my toe off one night doing Taekwondo. I was running.
Your opponent didn't rip your toe off, but
That was all me. So I was running down the mats, and I went to jump into position, and my big toe caught the mat, and my whole body weight came down and literally just ripped the toe.
Oh, yeah.
I had to basically push it back on, and everyone sort of went white, and I said, "Oh, it's all right. I'll just get in the car and drive to the hospital. It's only about 5 minutes up the road." A few people were like, no, we'll drive you. I said, no, it's fine. I've got my wife's car. It's an automatic. No worries. And prime example. Yeah, you're in control of the situation. You don't have to wait. You just want to get there. So totally relate.
And like in hindsight, like I know that the correct response would be that if somebody had called the ambulance, I would have had professional care on the way to the hospital
immediately,
which especially with what I had with a blocked arteries, you know, I have sprays and stuff now. I think I've left it in the car, but I've got like a spray that opens up my arteries, so if I do feel chest pain, I can spray this nitroglycerol stuff in my mouth, and it opens up the arteries and allows any blockages or clots or anything that could be causing it to like pass through. So it gives me a little bit more time to react. You know, so that would have been handy, you know, 20 minutes, 30 minutes earlier. But yeah, little things like that. Yeah, it's funny how it all just turned out, but it's probably the worst thing that's ever happened to me. Like I've basically lost my business over it. It wasn't the only reason, but it was probably a blessing. I just knew that it was time to make a change. Like if you don't take that hint as a hint, you never will. So I just decided to force change on every aspect of my life, basically, which has led me to actually be living away from the family in the short term. But hopefully, once I get a hold of this business that I've sort of taken over down on the coast here and get moving back forward into the direction that I want to take it, then everything will start falling back together. So
basically, you've gone from one stressful business to opening another stressful business.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
good medical move. Good health move.
Yeah, I know. It was against everybody's will, but I think for me, at the time, it was really more about my mental health, and there was a lot of things that I wanted to do and kind of couldn't do in my other business for with partners and other different reasons. So
you did mention you'd been in it for 18 plus years as well.
Yeah. So it's not something like the day-to-day business stuff doesn't kind of stress me too much, but sometimes the conflict and those in like the stringing out of payments and people lying, those are the things that get to me a bit more, like the moral stuff.
I think we've all been through that. I mean, like just like some of those people, I'm not trying to change the topic, but like, clients and stuff like that, they use this rule, wait to pay. Which is, I think, is a disgusting way to look at things. But people do actually do that, and it causes a lot of stress on your on the people that are there to help you, and then they don't pay you for their own benefit. It's
90-day accounts. Whoever came up with that idea.
It's funny. I know that the building industry's changed now, but I try to stay out of the building side of it at the moment, just to reduce that stress level, because that's really where the stress of the industry, of our particular industry, comes from, is from that building side. Like, the changes that have been made there for safety purposes, but some of them are definitely necessary, but like you can't even sweep a job site anymore. It's ridiculous. Like on a commercial site, now you have to you've got to have a $5,000 vacuum. Mask and a hazmat suit, and you can't do this and you can't do that. It's like it's another world. People just don't understand. If they've never been around that, they just never know. You can't use, you can't walk on a normal ladder. You got to use a platform ladder with a, like railing around it, and you have to have 3 points contact. That's been a rule forever. But like if you want to go up another foot, you need a whole nother ladder, which means you got to go and bust your back trying to pull it out of the car, but just to get up another foot.
Exactly.
It makes no sense to me, but anyway.
It's like you have to be safe, but then you have to put together this massive structure, sometimes by yourself, for your own safety. Which is it is. It's the double edge there, definitely. Of what is actually good for you or good for them, or good for us.
It's good for the people.
And you've got another hour of work. Another hour.
I do agree with all these. I do agree with all these implementations they put in to extra safety and whatnot. But like I grew up in a building sort of household. My dad was a builder. I'm a carpenter myself. There was a time when it was common sense.
It was ruthless, at some point.
You had to, be aware of your surroundings and what's around. Hey, there's a big gap that you could fall down. Just don't go near there. But now you have to, do site inductions and whatnot, and say to them, listen, you are not allowed to fall down that hole. And if you didn't give that induction, if you didn't give that induction, you can get in trouble because you didn't warn them that there was a gap there. That's obviously there's other instances where you may just fall or whatnot, but they've taken the common sense out of everything. That's
common sense was the best rule in my opinion, because
I think so too.
only the strong survived, and all the guys that shouldn't have been there died. So
That's right. Darwin's theory.
yeah, go and find something else to do.
We can only laugh about it,
Leave
but
it to the
very,
pros.
very serious topic, which is
Mm.
safety on the work site. And like, it just might add to all of us that are going to work at any given stage. Look after your friends and colleagues, workmates, and that just goes for everyone as well. You know, like just make sure that people are keeping their fluids up and like are fit and healthy, ready for work. And you know, safety is the biggest thing, and like just taking those precautions is very important for everyone out there, especially if someone is about to have something such as a health issue, as a heart attack. Maybe just talk a little bit more and just let people know how you're feeling as well.
Yeah.
Cool. So, Dan, did you do the mountain bike thing as well with
I did early on. Yeah, Nathan and I used to ride mountain bikes as youngsters. I remember, yeah, we used to just ride around Nathan's house up there at Currajong Heights and down a track called Burralow, which was good fun. And then we both sort of got into Yarramundi Bike Club and
Western Sydney Mountain Bike Club. Yeah.
Western Sydney at Yarramundi. That's what it was. Been many a year, but turned out Nathan was good and I was shit. So I wasn't. I was probably my event was more cross country, I suppose. But I was still shit. And yeah,
but the safety of the spectators on the downhill, it was best that Daniel was far away from.
But yeah, and we started sort of going to a few more races. There was one at Mount Victoria. There was a few more sort of coming up. There was some at Thredbo and things like that. And I just couldn't warrant going to those sort of those distances for to come last in events. So
yeah,
so,
yeah, fair enough.
Yeah,
but the mountain bike thing, I didn't get to do. I think I raced maybe one downhill on a borrowed bike one time, but yeah, it was not really my thing. It was I did do a little bit of motocross in my teens for like a year, 2 years, around the 13 mark, but BMX was my thing from 1983. I started and kind of went all the way through till probably 24, and then yeah, it was kind of patchy though. Like it was really good in my teens to late teens. That was one most dominant period.
Yep. And
then as I went to sort of roll into pro, they brought out UCI, and then UCI kind of made it junior elite, senior elite. So it forced me to wait another 2 years to race pro. And I was probably faster when I was 17 than I was when I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
But it's funny how that works. I was probably a better all-round rider in my 20s, but I was probably faster at 17, I reckon.
So around this time, were you also working?
So it was a patchy period. So I tried to pick and choose my battles and my moments to try to be like peak at certain times of the season. So I did do an apprenticeship, which is what slowed things down. And then also I was riding for GT from probably 94, 95 to until they went kind of bust when Richard Long, the owner, had an accident, and then the company kind of a couple of years after that had sort of dissolved and sold off to another company.
Mm-hmm.
So we lost our kind of importership and like from Southcott's the Australian importer, and then there was kind of 12 months with nothing. So I didn't ride in those 12 months, and that was actually when I picked up the mountain bike, which happened by accident. I wanted to go to Cairns for the weekend to party, and I was working in a bike shop in Townsville at the time. I was had taken some time out of the trade, and I was working at a mate's bike shop, and then the word obviously came through the bike shop that there was a mountain cross race up in Cairns. So Glenn Jacobs had built one of his tracks up there, and it was like the first kind of, I suppose, four-cross event that I'd heard of in Australia at that time. And I always loved the Cairns boys. I sort of was, you know, loosely affiliated with a lot of the earlier guys with the cows and mud cows and those types of guys, and obviously was stimulated by those movies and that back in the day, those short films. You know, it was like sort of through the Krusty era, and then obviously Nath. I was watching a bit of his stuff at the time too, even though at that stage we still hadn't met. With the Black Phoenix boys, with Robbie and those guys from Newey area. So
Josh, nice guys, yeah.
yeah, it was great. Like those years were great. They're probably some of the most fun years I remember having, because the pressure of like winning races for one of the biggest bike brands in the world wasn't really there for me at that particular time. But I still loved to ride, and I'd had, you know, years and years, decades of experience. So even when you don't ride for 6 to 12 months, you can still pick it up, and it's like nothing really happened. And if you want to race right at the top, then yeah, there's a big difference. But if you just want to race at local events, you can still like slay it. So,
Yeah.
you know, I went up there to get on the beers with my mates, and I really was having a bit of a moment, because I thought I'd just done a 20-something year career in BMX, and none of my mates from Townsville had ever watched me race, like that I hung out with, because nobody rides in Townsville. Like, it wasn't really a thing. Nowadays, there's quite a big enduro mountain bike scene there, but yeah, in those days, there's very few guys really outside of that. Everyone sort of played football, basketball, you know, like the core sports. Motocross was a little bit of a thing there as well, but yeah, it was just an interesting time. So I just said to the boys, "Oh, why don't we go up and party in Cairns? And if you don't mind, I'll go and do a few laps at this thing in the Arvo. It'll be like a bit of like an event sort of thing, and you can just drink beers in the car and watch me, you know." And that's kind of how it came about. And I borrowed this dude's Trek Bruiser 2, which is like was the original kind of low cut frame, you know, 14.5-inch kind of dirt jump, the entry dirt jump mountain bike kind of thing at the time. And they were bulletproof, and it felt so strong. Whereas mountain bikes that we'd ridden pre that were like cross country bikes that had been cut down, and we sort of jimmied them into a jump bike or whatever. So it was like odd shapes, and you know, things weren't real strong, and all those. I'd always blow parts off them every time you rode them. So it was like good to actually have like quite a sturdy bike and have that stability underneath you. So I ended up winning that race. I think I may have beaten Shawnee McCarroll that weekend. And he was like number 4 or something in the world for 4 cross at the time. So I was like off the bike for like 12 months or something, and just rocked up.
Good result then.
Partying the night before out on the roundies and being a fool. And then, just rocked up and did really well. So.
I just go to show, like, that experience that you have, it never really leaves you anyways. I mean, like, you've still got 2 wheels underneath you, and just like being in that environment and like having race experience before then, like a lot of people don't even get over the nerves of going into a race, especially when you're up against someone that is well known or has like a world ranking or a national ranking or something like that. So like, it's got to be pretty intimidating for anyone to really get up to that level. But like, you did really well, man, to actually like compete against those guys and actually get some results. So, yeah. And so
yeah, I think you're right. I think that mental side was what came natural, because racing around 8 guys is what I was used to. Racing around 4 is easy because there's less traffic. So, and to me, none of those guys have experience. Well, a couple did, like Mickey Hanna and Shawnee McCarroll. Those guys kind of had experience racing because they came from BMX, but very few other guys really get the experience from racing in traffic, and that was kind of a traffic race. So it kind of played into a lot of our guys' hands. But I think I like I really loved the 4 cross thing, obviously because I was winning, so it's fun. But I actually just like riding the mountain bike over the BMX because it actually just felt more natural, because it was more free flowing and there's less stress around the event. There's no one telling you to tuck your shirt in and like, you know, do this and do that. And, you know,
Don't tuck your
You
shirt.
have to.
It
It's
is. It
just
is.
like BMX can get
Tuck your shirt
really.
in, Sonny.
You
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
compete in this event because your shirt's not tucked in, Sonny.
Yeah, and you're not wearing ankle-high socks and like all these UCI rules, you know, and you're not wearing long pants. You know, you can just rip in a pair of boardies and a Singo and like no one cared. It was just crazy to me at the time.
Yeah,
And I
it is.
loved riding with no gloves because I'd spent a lot of time riding on the street as a kid. So, you know, even motorbikes, everything, I just ride with no gloves. It's weird, but it's just something from
That's
riding on the
scars.
streets. Mm, yeah. And so I
You're
suppose that was where
really
the mountain bike
safety.
thing started to take off. So I actually won that weekend. McCarroll, I think he might have actually beat me, but I think I got the fastest time actually that weekend. And then Mickey Hanna raced the second race, and I think I won that weekend. And then McCarroll came back, and I think I might have won the last one. So I took the series. But anyway, it just like I was mates with McCarroll at the time anyway, so I used to kick with him because I had a girlfriend in Cairns. Probably about 3 years, 2 or 3 years prior to that. So I used to ring McCarroll when I was in Cairns, and we'd just go and have fun riding, you know, parks or whatever, skate ramps or whatever we could at the time. So I kind of had a little bit of like a hangout with those guys prior to, and we had sort of a good friendship at the time. And we all just loved riding. So we'd just ride for 12 hours a day, you know, like nothing else was important in those days. Like it was so cool just to
Man, that's
just live the dream, you know?
it's such a good thing. I mean, like that's where bike riders always stick together like that. I mean, like I grew up in a pretty funny area, like both me and Daniel did. We grew up in Western Sydney. I mean, a lot of areas have this sort of reputation sort of thing. Like a lot of people that I knew that I went to school with or friends in town, they were out doing all these crazy things. And, you know, some of them were into crime and drugs and just being a general.
Allegedly.
These people that I know. But yeah, I mean, like just getting together in any sport actually, and just like having you guys and girls around you and just like driving each other on is a much better option than going out and being an idiot in the street or just like causing trouble, any sort of trouble, or like, you know, getting involved with like, you know, I'll say gangs, but there's gangs everywhere. You know, we all have a posse, but you know, sports is just the greatest way to get through your teenage and even into your 20s. I mean, like I'm still involved in sports. I'm probably going to go to the gym this afternoon, you know. So yeah,
It's a great outlet for kids, isn't it? It's, you know, I'm encouraging my kids. They all do sports. It's a good way. Yeah, exactly what Nathan said. To keep them out of trouble, keep them occupied, and keep them fit. And encourage that competitive nature in them. You know, back to bikes. You know, like we lived on our bikes when we were growing up. You rode from one guy's house to the next guy's house, and parked your bike at the front. People would ride past and go, "Oh yeah, Nathan's there, Daniel's there," because their bike's there. You know,
That's right. Yeah, that was the key back in the day, wasn't it?
Like you got to admit, like people in the local area, like they knew where the kid was because the guy with the blue bike was there. You know, that's that guy with the blue bike. I've seen him around. I don't know his number, but he knows your knows your location at any time.
Like how rad it was, like not even having phones or anything. You just if our parents actually knew that we were like 40 k's away from our house.
That's very interesting because
they just wouldn't have even probably fathomed. You know what I mean? Like I suppose ours would have because they know what we're capable of. But
it's crazy to think about. I mean, like when I was like in my little posse in my hometown there, like obviously didn't have a phone, but we all knew to meet at the letterbox. You know, like it was just an unspoken thing. It's just like I'd get home earlier, and then like their school bus would come in, and then you meet at the letterbox, and then you plan those couple of hours before whatever we planned. Nothing went to plan, but like you know, no phones at all.
Yeah. Only 1-800 collect when you got a flat tire.
That's it.
Yeah.
Reverse
call. I wonder if that still works.
Reverse call. Remember that? There was a number that you could put into the phone box, and then it would instantly reverse call, and then like you'd pick up and the recipient would have to say, "Yes, I accept the charges."
That's right.
You could
Nate,
just
Nate,
force the bill onto anyone. Imagine if you did that, like your entire, say, work related environment, and your client picks up, you accept the charges. Yeah, yes, okay.
quite
Just
often,
you're paying this time. Yeah.
when we were growing up, Nathan and I lived, what, 25 Ks away, you think?
Yeah, roughly that, yeah.
Yeah. A few times I'd say, I'm going to ride to Nathan's house. And so I'd ride to about Kermond, which was about probably 15 Ks. And then from there on, it was like up this mountainous S-bend track. Quite often I'd get to the payphone at Kermond and go, reverse charge to Nathan. Bruce, Nathan's dad would answer, hello, Bruce, would you mind coming picking me up?
Yeah,
and,
that's
you get
hilarious.
down in the Subaru and pick me up.
Yeah.
Off we go. So
Yeah, so as soon as,
So that's where
as
the
soon as you got to
Subaru
the,
love came from.
that's it.
as soon as you got to the base of the hill, then you called Dad to come to the rest of the way.
I had every intention of riding up there, but
I'm sure you did, Daniel. You did.
I did.
You just knew where the phone box was. That's what it was.
Yeah.
I think that only happened once or twice, but
Yeah, so it's quite funny. So yeah, that's where the mountain bike thing kind of sort of stemmed from and started. And then I sort of thought, this is more fun and feels more natural to me. So I'm going to maybe give this a little bit more of a crack. If there's any other races, I'm going to fly down for them and have a crack. And I still didn't do any real training, and I still didn't actually have a bike, so I had to borrow. So when I came back down, there was another race in Brizzy here somewhere, and I borrowed Shane Pierce's like GT Zascar one weekend. I think that's when that weekend that we raced TC's race, Nath, that's when we met originally.
Yeah, was that Mount Perry?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, it was out the back of Brisbane there somewhere.
That was a long time ago now, bro. But,
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
how many years are we talking?
There was yourself and Kavarik and Wody.
in the teens, the amount of years, sort of thing. Yeah.
So there was like some pretty, that was like for a 4-cross race, that's a packed heat, even at an international, I suppose, standard, because we'd all raced at some level international by that stage. So, yeah, it was quite funny that like we were just running these like 2 Bob Hick races in the back of like grass paddocks, in the middle of nowhere. It was kind of cool, but
Yeah.
yeah, I did quite well. I kind of surprised myself that weekend, but I was kind of fit that weekend that we raced there. And then that was when we kind of had hit it off, and I realised you guys were living on the Gold Coast and I was here at the time. I was already sort of kicking around with Bootsy just for the BMX stuff at the time, because Bootsy was still racing BMX and trying to get prepped for 2008 Olympics, which was still years away at that stage. It's probably 5 years away, I think, at that point. So I kind of had to come to a decision of whether I was going to commit to continue. I think I was like the 2nd seed. I think it was Luke, Medill, and myself were 1 and 2, I think, at the time, and I think Wade was 3, and Kama might have been 4. So like there was probably 6 or 8 of us at the time that were maybe good enough. And we're all playing the same speed.
I'm working on camera on the podcast.
Oh yeah.
Very listening, but yeah.
It's quality. I like Cam. I've been catching a bit here since I've been here.
So did you compete at the Olympics for?
No, I pulled out. I quit like 4 years out. I couldn't sort of fathom being another, like, what actually happened was the Australian Sports Commission sent out a letter and told us about how the criteria was going to work. And I was number 2 at the time, I think, in the criteria. And we didn't know how many were going to go at that stage. So it didn't really mean anything to us at that point. But 2 had to be close to going, you would assume, if you stayed there.
Yeah.
But there was many years to go. So, like, we chop and change every year. So there was still quite a bit of work to do. And I just thought to myself, I just can't fathom being, 28, turning 29. I would have been like the week or 2 weeks before the event. Not that it would matter from an age perspective, but from a life perspective and where I wanted to be in my life cycle, as far as, did I want a relationship? Did I want to be invested? Did I want to have a business? Did I want to have a life after BMX? Kind of, how long am I going to do this thing for? think it just came down to when the UCI removed the prize money, that was the only thing that kept me to going to the next race.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
It wasn't
Yeah.
a lot of prize money. It was only like, you know, between, I think it was like 1,200 Swiss francs or whatever for a win, which was like nothing really. But, you know, I still was sort of by that stage, I'd been picked up by Felt. So I was doing some Felt bikes work there for their BMX side. And then they obviously had a bit of a mountain bike side. So I was able to do my cross sport pollination kind of thing to try to attract external sponsors. Like in those days, like sunglass things were starting to be a thing, you know, goggles, you know, full face, you know, the full face helmet thing. You know, those guys get mileage in both sports, so you start to become attractive to different markets, but none of it ever really came off. Dragon was paying for a little bit, but I didn't really ever chase it up. Like, so I don't think I ever received $1 from them, but they did give me a fair bit of product, and there was a photo contingency there. But because I didn't live in Sydney next to, you know, where the guys where they're taking photos at the local tracks when they need to fill a few spots in the mag, then, you know, it's like when you're living in North Queensland, it's a bit hard to get your photo in the on the front cover when you don't live anywhere near them. You kind of got to be at the event and win every event to be right in anywhere near an opportunity to do it.
Yeah,
so, yeah, all of that sort of fell to the wayside, and I made the executive decision that I just couldn't justify. I probably could have got there financially if, you know, someone would have helped along the way or something would have happened. You would have got there eventually somehow, but I just didn't want to be 30 and, you know, have nothing. You know, like I literally had a bag of clothes and 60 or 80 grand's worth of push bikes, and I have to give all those back anyway. So like you don't really own them, you know. So it's like just weird. I just couldn't fathom it being like that at 30 almost, you know. So that's when I sort of went back to town and started business. And after about 12 months, I was still going to go back to the US and do another season. And then I don't know what come over me. I just thought, oh, when's enough? You know, like you're just going to bury yourself for another 2 years, and you will be in the same spot again at 30. So I just decided that was it for the toys, and pretty much put everything down and just turned the TV off and stopped ordering the magazines, and that was it. I just walked away as silently as possible.
Yeah.
And it was sad, but I think moving into the business, it gave me a lot of focus and drive in that respect. And I thought, you know, ultimately we all kind of know once you've been at that mental peak for many years from an athlete perspective, that if you can focus that energy and hyper focus on what you need to do, doesn't really matter what it is, over time, you keep playing that game and you break it down and you restructure and you break it down and you restructure, you will always get there.
Yeah.
So, and that's the belief that I think we can sometimes see that other people can't. And most people will quit before when it gets too hard. Whereas we'll blindly walk through the wall because that's what we want. So I think once you've sort of scratched that itch and you know that it's there, you kind of keep pushing that. And I think that's been a big part of why I enjoy business today.
Yeah.
That's definitely what gets you out of bed.
I've found that exactly the same thing. I was going to relate that back to my business. You know, I've been in the carpentry business for 25 years, and you know, started off just, you know, doing little jobs here, little jobs there. Slowly, you build up a good name for yourself, to the point where people want to use you because you're the best.
Yeah.
Without blowing my own trumpet, but yeah. You take.
You've got to think like that, right? Because if you put that much effort into it, you know, ultimately you are the best at what you do.
That's right.
Somebody else might be just the best at what they do as well. It doesn't necessarily mean that you can do the same thing and still be the best at what you do. You know, like because you do stuff different than what he does. You know,
exactly. I just an eye for detail and certain things like that.
Especially when your trade's a little bit more artistic as well. Than you know, like it can be quite architectural, or it can be churn and burn, or it can be a shed, or like it's so broad. So
exactly, yeah.
Interesting.
A lot of your work seen,
yeah.
For instance, air conditioning. Only certain parts would be seen in your trade.
Yeah. So that's the interesting bit. So it's funny because I like data and I like analytic type stuff, and so I'm kind of working on a like an asset maintenance, like barcoding kind of full deal to manage products on across multiple sites and bring it all back down into like budgetable forecasts. So like tell people this is when you're going to need to buy a new one of those, and the estimated pricing will be, you know, in 10 years time will be X, you know?
Yep.
So I can start to try and bring what big corporate would be doing into small to medium business, so that they can control their costs from a more better perspective. Like, yeah, and our trade's so boom and bust with weather as well, and everyone, you know, like, you know, climate, you know, I was obviously, I don't want to get into the climate argument because I'm, you know, it's I don't know, like I work in the industry. I work in the industry, and I think like we should be looking after the climate. Like, there's no doubt.
Yeah.
But I think that the way that they go about it is just so wrong, because there's a few things that happen in our trade with licensing and that they could fix like instantaneously, but they all just turn their blind eye, and we all complain and tell them what's wrong, but no one wants to listen. Like,
that's right.
But yet they're over on this billboard telling everybody how to suck eggs, and I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. It's like smoke and mirrors, you know, like this is what it is on the ground, and this is what you're telling everyone it is. I just don't. So that's where I get a little bit funny with it. But
I get a little bit funny into the fact that like say like there are these changes with the climate that are going on, and there are ways to go about it, but there really isn't any massive source of education about it. It seems like, oh, we will tax you if you do these certain things and take your money, but then we won't tell you how to fix those situations.
Yeah,
that's it.
So like if you really want to make change, I don't think money should be a part of it. The education side of it should come from one to another, or then if there is a larger party of people, then that's where the information should be coming from. I mean, like we're older, we are guys, and so we understand a little bit more about the environment, stuff like that. But what about the guys and girls that are just starting in their work and like full-time work, whatever it may be? They pretty well don't understand exactly how to take care of the environment super well. You know, they honestly don't. And I think education is a really big part of that, not just like taking money from people to stop you from doing something when they haven't told you what you did wrong. You know, so
I feel a lot of there's some massive polluters out there, huge companies, huge multinational companies. They're the polluters, but the governments seem to be putting the climate argument, the climate solution onto us. And we're gonna charge you, you know, years ago the carbon tax. We're gonna, you know, do this. We're gonna charge, and ultimately we're the ones going to pay for it. Where the people who are polluting, doing the huge amounts of pollution, are these big corporations. And
like ultimately, I suppose even when they do charge those companies, you know, the way that the big business world works is that we pay anyway. So
that's it.
So like, you know, like it is really hard to like force them to pay a royalty and make it stick, because depending on their position in the market, they'll either be able to wear it or they won't, you know, like it's one of those things. It's very hard to find some of those conglomerates that are so big. They just have so much dominance over those markets that they would just on pass it anyway, because a fluctuation in their price to absorb it is really going to be invisible to most of us, but we're still paying it. So, you know, it looks like they've paid it, but we've still paid it. So
we're paying it.
Yeah, they're good at the old smoke and mirrors. Poor man pays twice.
But yeah, it's to me, it just seems the whole solution to this problem seems to be put back onto us, just the consumer, who's only using products that these big corporations have provided. You know, when you open a bag of chips, you know, you get four chips in there. The rest is plastic. You know, you think, why the hell do you need so much plastic?
I just need more chips. I
don't need more chips.
You go back into the store and get another 4 chips, and then you got 2 problems.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yes.
yeah, and then I like what they're doing with solar, and maybe not so much with electric cars. I think that's going to be a huge problem in down the track. But the hydrogen system seems to be a far better system from what I've read into.
I'm not sold on the electric car thing. I've driven the Tesla. They feel great to drive and everything, but it's like, for the economic perspective, you buy them for, say, 65,000 or something for a little mummy Tesla 3 or whatever.
Yeah.
And then they go like showers of shit. But then all of a sudden, 5 years later, it's locking you out, and you need 26 grand for a battery, and the thing's only worth 20 grand. Like,
Yeah,
none of that adds up to me. So, like, okay, let's make it economic, but how is it economic when you got to replace the thing every 5 years?
That's right.
Like, and then all of that goes into the waste.
Yep.
So, like, anyway, we're going down the path that I didn't really want to go down, but you get the idea.
Oh, you want to. We can tell.
Everything.
Let's not argue.
We want to.
Let's talk about the good
We
stuff.
want to.
Exactly right.
Anyway, let's talk about sobriety. That's been a pretty good thing for me lately since I had my heart attacks. I've been on a similar path to Nath. I haven't not had a beer, but I don't actually drink. I've probably had 4 beers in like a year and a half, nearly 2 years or something like that.
Was drinking a big problem for you, or you felt you just drank too much?
I didn't. I wasn't an alcoholic, but I'm a social drinker, so I wouldn't drink for ages. And then all of a sudden, we've got like a double header of weddings and a double header of weddings and a double header of weddings, and
So
I'll try and do the whole weekend, 3 weekends in a row without sleep. So I'm
their
just
happiness for the rest of their life. It's their fault.
Yeah. So I'm just that guy. I just drink like I'm a social drinker, and I'm like, I drink in the moment, like, and I just like, once I get, say, 5 or 6 under my belt, like, there's the brake pedal runs out of fluid, and we're off. We're not slowing down.
That was my problem.
I can laugh at it, but it's it can be a serious problem for most. I don't think it. I was definitely full functioning, and there was no real major issues from that perspective. But from a health perspective, it was really that I'm now on statin drugs to control my cholesterol, and because I'm in my 40s, I'm 20 years more exposed to that drug, and it already causes liver damage and things like that in people with heart disease. So if I've got an extra 20 years of that stuff in my system, there's a massive opportunity for that to happen. So I just figured, why not try and clean up the liver? And I won't say that I won't drink ever again, but I don't have any intentions to do it.
That's good. Yeah,
especially in that sort of setting. You know what I mean? I think I've got a big enough fright going through that that moment when there was a moment there, because my missus has had breast cancer as well a couple of years back, so she's doing fairly well now, but she's still going through some of the treatment and that. So I think when I thought that I was going to die in the bloody corridor of the hospital that day, I thought, mate, what's going on? Like, your kids will grow up with no parents if shit gets weird here. You know what I mean? Like, if something evolves to happens to the missus, which at this stage doesn't look like it will happen, but like, how can you predict cancer? Like, nobody can do that. So let's just assume that, like, if that happened and something happens to my ticker, and my kids are still, at the time, were like 14 and 10. I'm just like, man, what the hell? What's it about? And it sounds silly because I don't live near them now, and I've put everything on the line, but I just thought that this was a good choice for the long term. It's the best choice for the short term, but
like I might just add with our viewers and ourselves there. I mean, like, a lot of people, a lot of guys have this idea about them that they're absolutely invincible, and then they push themselves to a point and even tell themselves that'll never happen to me. And then it actually it probably will if you don't listen to the signs as it goes along. And so it's just like, oh, it won't hurt me, it won't hurt me. But like, from your own experiences with your health, I mean, like, when it's on and and something has happened, then it's time to act. But a lot of people, when it comes to the way that they take care of themselves, they honestly think that they're invincible. And if you go see the doctor, then it's a sign of weakness in a way for some people. But yeah, I just want to add, like with all of our listeners out there, if you even think that there's a problem or there could be, then get it checked out by a
Go
professional.
straight to the doctor. Go straight there. We've got free
Sorry.
healthcare. We pay for free healthcare.
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah. Sadly, I sort of got misdiagnosed, which put me off on a bit of a wrong shoot. But
Yeah, that's
I think most of my problem actually was really a system issue, you know. So not a lot of people really know this, but like some do. I've been a little vocal about it over the years, especially to my closer friends. Is that I think most of my problem was I was actually adopted, and when I was going to see people for my heart, there was no previous history because I didn't know what it was.
Yeah, you didn't have it.
So I think anybody that presents like that with heart symptoms should effectively be elevated to get a particular like a genetic test or whatever the case may be to see what type of thing we're dealing with instead of just winging it. I think if that would have happened in the early stages of me saying, hey, I just don't know, then this whole outcome would have been very different. Like
you said earlier, your brother had heart issues as well. Was he your biological brother or?
No, we weren't.
Okay.
So yeah, both of us were adopted, so not blood related.
Yeah, okay. Because when you said that originally,
I grew up with him. Yeah.
When you said that originally,
that happening as well, like with different blood into the same family, like that's even rarer than two blood brothers.
Yeah.
You know,
when you said that originally, I thought straight away. I thought genetically, there's some sort of link there. But
no, it's that's where the shock kind of came. It's pretty strange.
Like you guys come together though. I mean, like I'll ask your opinion on this. I mean, you guys come together from separate families and then grow up in the same environment. Like you probably have the same like dietary and environments as well as that goes along. So you don't necessarily have to be like blood related to have the same problems. It's also your intake and the environments that you're in along the way. So
mine was definitely stress driven, and then alcohol was my release to the stress and like socializing, probably more than the alcohol, but the alcohol is always generally there, but not didn't always drink, but you know, as my mental health got worse, I probably was drinking more.
Yeah.
Was it related? Maybe. I just think now that I know that my blood and oxygen wasn't getting to my brain, that makes a lot of sense. Plus, I was on pharma meds as well for on and off for like 6 years of about 10 years. So, and I'm off all of that stuff now, which has been great. Like, and like my pain levels are down to sort of 2s and 3s rather than sitting at 8 to 9 constant, like for years and years. So yeah, there's been a lot of huge changes, lots of little ones as well. But yeah, I don't know. It's a lot of it I've been doing is like a ton of meditation and sleep hypnosis stuff to try to get into my parasympathetic nervous system, I think it is, so that it actually like stops the tension, so I can try to tell my brain to just calm down and let the tension go.
Yeah.
But I still wouldn't be surprised that I might have some sort of underlying thing like a nervous system issue, or you know, like I don't know, maybe like I'm just guessing out of the blue here, like an Epstein-Barr's, or you know, one of those things that may be triggered by something that I'm eating that's triggering some inflammation, which is triggering something. So I still reckon that there's things there that I haven't scratched, but for the most part, since I've been working on trying to get my liver clean and hydrogen water and taking some amino acids that I've got onto that make me feel quite good. Like I actually feel probably 10 years younger than what I did like even 2 to 3 months ago. So that is huge for me, because there was a stage where I turned 40 and I even said to the missus, I don't think I'm going to make 50. That I felt like that terrible. Like I honestly felt like I was 80 and I'd limp to get out of bed. Like it was like horrific. and we just could not put our finger on what the problem was, like why my back pains and things were so bad. So to see where I am now, I didn't think I'd get back to this, just even to where I am now. And I still have goals of getting into another, few rungs up yet. So, yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. What you mentioned something? Was it sleep paralysis? Is that what?
Sleep hypnosis. I've been
Hypnosis.
doing.
Sorry.
Yeah. So I listen to sometimes it's like NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming. So like quite often when I was like in the trenches and I wanted to do better.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I used to say negative stuff about me being an adopted kid and all that kind of, anything that was like negative that impacts you emotionally.
Yep.
I would say it so that it would push me to go harder. So
Yeah.
it would give me a little bit of extra energy. And as a kid, I didn't realize that pushing a negative to create a positive was wrong. Whereas in modern psychology, that's actually like incorrect programming. So what I've effectively done is that every time I'm under pressure, I put more pressure on myself.
Yeah.
Then you just fold, and that's where the mental health thing comes in. So quite often I'll just try and listen to just either positive reinforcement stuff or like just it's kind of when I first started doing it, I was like, man, this is so weird. Like, how's this even going to work? But over time, I actually thrive on it now because once I start playing the tunes in my head, it literally like hones me into like a type of focus into the middle of the back of my head sort of thing, into like a dark spot, and I'm literally
gland.
Yeah, I'm just literally out in like 15 seconds, I reckon. Like,
right.
Unbelievable the change that you get when you can sleep. Like, sleep itself is so critical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like,
if you sleeping as well.
And I think all those years of the drinking and the partying that I've sort of been through, it's the sleep deprivation that causes the worst.
It is
some of the worst thing.
Nothing beats a good night's sleep, man. Like, nothing at all. I mean, like you look at all those influences that we go through when we're younger. I mean, like drinking and partying and stuff like that. Like it's not just what you put into your system. It's the time that you're doing that. Like you're not exercising, you're sitting around, you're staying up late, and then you're missing out on that crucial sleep, and it's affecting your diet as well.
Yeah.
And so like when you are out there partying and doing all these dumb things, sure, you're having a great time, but over a period of time, then all those time brackets which you haven't been generally behaving yourself, it all adds up, and it can turn into situations which we, to be honest, we've all been in because of it. So just have to be very mindful of what you're doing to your system.
Yeah, and definitely all these problems we're talking about at the moment, they're not necessarily uncommon issues. Like, this stuff happens all the time. Like, it's quite normal. Maybe not to go as hard, or have obviously the depth varies, but generally speaking, it's quite normal. So I've never really had a problem with like voicing stuff and like talking about stuff, especially with my friends, and being able to get things off my chest. Like, where I know a lot of guys really struggle with that. So that in particular, I think, is the only thing that has helped me through my stuff, is to be able to, my mates must just think I'm fucking batshit crazy, but at least they give me the opportunity. They know it's good for me, so they let me get it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the difference. Like, if they don't, they're not really your mate. They don't care.
Yeah.
So
I think that's a good way for men, and is to have an outlet. But a lot of men don't talk. It's weak to speak, sort of thing. But you should be able to have a good circle of friends where you can tell them anything. And I think a lot of mental health issues come down to that, men bottling things up. I know myself. I can't tell certain people certain things because they'll think that's weird or whatever.
Yeah, there's embarrassment, and there's the lack of manhood or whatever, the strength. But now we think the world's definitely changed. It's a lot more accepting now than it's ever been. So
it's sort of gone as that era of that strong silent type. Those That era's gone. Yeah.
Mm.
Let's just face it. If you do something like that, if you ignore the signs that there is an issue and say I'm better than that, I'm stronger than that, then you're a
Yeah.
damn idiot.
Yeah.
You're an
Get,
absolute
get yourself
fool.
on the podcast and get it
That's
out.
right. Come on.
Tell us about your
Doctor
problems.
Dr. Rennie's going to sort this.
Hey,
Dr. Ranga. That's got a bit of a ring to it, doesn't it?
Dr. Ranga. How's anyone going to give you a license? Anyway, how's anyone going to give you a license? It's just, it's a very important thing, like amongst your friends, to really voice these problems and you just get it off your chest and like don't bottle these sort of things up. I mean, like we talk about health and we do with the podcast touch on mental health a fair bit as well. And so just being transparent with how you're feeling with your groups, whoever they may be, family, friends, men, women, whoever it is, just being transparent and honest within those communities is a major factor of your overall health.
Start that conversation, you know, you get it started. Talk to your friends. Ask how they're doing.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, like you see people that eat like all this crazy food, which is obviously bad for them, and then they just go along with it and don't really say anything, but they notice them doing it like all the time, and they're like, oh well, maybe not do that. And it is very touchy to actually talk to some people, but then, you know, just bring it up in a conversation and then like even not tell them what to do, but then like leading by example as well. I mean, like we've all been involved in sports, and so that we understand like a pretty good dietary ideas. Although you know, like I've got this silly drinking reputation, which has been a bad thing. But then, like it took me a while to understand that it's not only what I'm doing to myself; it's the environment that I'm doing it in as well.
That's right.
So it's a collective effort for you and your buddies, guys and girls, to really help one another, and just you don't even have to tell them what to do. It's like, if you do this, then this will happen. It's just like encourage those more healthy attitudes and healthier environments overall.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot to talk about on that subject. That's for sure. So tell me about your current business stuff, Rennie. How's you doing like some coaching things and doing those bits and pieces, or what is your week to week? How does it like sort of stack up at the moment?
Oh, things are going pretty well. Like with the Victory Lab, which is my athlete management company, I've got a few guys under my belt. They're all doing pretty well. I won't run around starting to drop some names and stuff like that, because we don't want any jealousy going on. But yeah, I mean, like I'm just there to help out young athletes in any sport, just to choose a pathway and the right direction. Because I've made mistakes, I've made big mistakes, and I've had the highs and lows along the way. And I'm really there to help, because I'm one of the very few people that can honestly say that I've done it all. And so I'm just there as a mentor and help. Yeah, and just making sure they don't do anything too wrong, and just like how to take care of sponsors and things like that. So yeah.
What better mentor that someone has been the best? You know, they've done good things, they've done bad things, they've been through all the highs, the lows.
Yeah,
I'm just the bad boy.
He's the bad boy about mountain biking.
Yeah, the highs and lows.
But it's turned good.
That's what creates the character too, you know, like as long as you don't lose your character amongst all that stuff, you know, at least you've been able to find yourself, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
that's one of the biggest things, you know, like you can go and do these things and you know, go, you know, let it be drinking, or go and, you know, doing silly stuff on the drink or whatever. But at the end of the day, like if you're not a good person underneath it all, then that's when you've got a problem, you know what I mean? Like,
that's it. Like
you got to still have some sort of keel that, you know, like a certain kind of aura that you stick to with who you are. Like, and through all those years, even if you were in a bad place, I remember trying to ride a mountain bike, and you and I would go and train together and go and jump stuff and, you know, launch skate parks and just, you know, egg each other on to try and do better things. And yeah, then we'd go and drink. But like,
I know.
You know, like at the time, it was like 80% positive and 20% probably destructive. You know what I mean? Whereas,
well, I think it was more 50-50 actually.
But yeah, well, you guys might have been when you're overseas. Like, I didn't get to see all of that, but
there were some weeks there, man. Like the bike stayed in the box You know, like you'd have a week off and you'd be in Europe somewhere, and you'd literally get to your destination. You didn't speak the language. The bike stayed in the box, but you knew where the pub was. And, and you knew the international sign.
As long as your ass points south,
And
you just keep walking straight, you'll find one.
yeah, and you didn't even speak the language or anything like that. And like honestly, you were so tired from traveling and racing and all that sort of thing. It was half a good idea, but overall, it was not a good idea, man. It was not.
Yeah, it's the consumption that is the bad idea. Having
Yeah,
going to the pub and enjoying yourself after you've had a week of racing and you've just flogged back out of yourself with all the pressure and everything. It's probably a good idea until you don't go home.
yeah, I mean, like, it's going to sound like a cover up, but like, you get really good at like racing and competing, and then all of a sudden you go to the pub and then you're still racing and competing. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to drink more than you, sort of thing.
That could be exactly what it is. It's a competitive nature.
Very dumb way to look at it, but like, but some athletes actually do that, and it's very tricky. Like you can't tell someone who's a champion in their sport that like they get to like their attitude, it does rise, it does, and so then all of a sudden like the competition side of things, it comes up. It's like, well, you can do that, but then I can go out and party and I can dance harder than you, but that involves doing all this other dumb stuff while you're there, sort of thing. So it's just choosing environments,
Yeah, that was one thing I was thinking with the BMX environment, that like you just knew you couldn't get away with that. You just didn't, like after a Worlds event or after a national event, everyone would go out and enjoy themselves. But like I'm talking, you couldn't do that like for a series, for example. It just didn't. You could never get away with it. It was just so critical that you didn't do it. So the level of competition was so high. Whereas I think for me, when I switched to the mountain bike, that was the environment that I wanted to be around. Like I wanted that more relaxed environment, that like yeehawing and the chainsawing and the noise and the DJ at the end and like
mad wife.
Yeah, that was like the thing. I think at the time. It was funny because like I think I might have won, or at least the first male. It must have been someone would have got the first females rainbow jersey for the first World Cup for UCI, because I raced juniors the first year at the first event. So I got a World Cup jersey there, and I got one for the second round because my points were still on the top. So I got the second round jersey even though I didn't go. And then when the Red Bull stuff took off many years later, and Robbie had that do in his backyard at his grandparents that time.
Yeah, that's right.
He was going to throw the council event on, and then they sort of pulled the pin on it, I think, last minute.
Yeah, I forget what happened.
So ended up moving it into the grandparents' farm or wherever that was there. And mate, that was like one of the most mental weekends. Like that was such a cool weekend. I remember I jumped and like landed on Millsy's arm and broke it, the poor bugger. And like
I vaguely remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just, man, that was like, because he's such a good dude, Mills, as well.
Yeah.
And like, yeah.
What was this Red Bull event? What was this?
So it was meant to be. Well, Robbie was going to throw an event on there's like a grass hill in Newcastle, like sort of in the city area, and he was going to block that whole thing off and like run a full cross event there.
Oh, okay, right.
And so like it'd drag like people who don't watch mountain biking in to watch some full cross, which would have been spectacular. And then he'd been working on this thing for such a long time, and it looked like it was going to come together. And then I think the deal kind of changed, or a few things were getting too complicated. So he switched it and he had to push the event, but he didn't want to cancel the event. So he moved it, put it into onto a farm in his grandparents' place, and they dug a track in the back of their farm. And like, we had this like Yahoo event. It was so pretty, like just random at the time, but it was such a good experience. Like, the best of the best guys were there, like the track was awesome. It was like multiple lines, like some high-low stuff. you know, 3 lines in every corner, cross jumping, like all sorts of stuff going on, heaps of elbowing. And yeah, it was just a good bit of fun. I actually ended up winning that day as well.
Oh, and by the way, I won this amazing event.
But it was just weird, like, you know. But what I was about to say is, like, I won that UCI event at BMX. There's no footage, and I've got nothing to show for it. You know, that potentially might have been one of the first. Well, it was definitely the first full cross event. I don't know if Chindy and those other big drop runs were prior to that event or after, but therefore, anyways, I didn't even have any footage or anything, photos or anything from that event, other than the memories and the experience that, like, I had hanging out with those boys. You know, like, we just had so much good time together. So, and it's funny now as I try and tell my kids and, you know, people who I know, and the only thing that I have that's worth showing them is, like, those World Cup jerseys. And to be honest, they weren't really high on my pick list. I've had like 100 races that are probably tougher or better or harder fought, and some of those I didn't even win, but I feel like I rode better.
Yeah,
and yeah, it's just funny how all of that comes together over time. You know?
So John, when you're not riding, when you're not working, what do you get up to?
Well, these days that's almost all I do. I do a little bit of walking these days, and I'm e-biker. I've got a giant e-bike, so I do get out a little bit. But the Gold Coast has had some rain just about every weekend for the last 6 months, so it's just enough to entice me to not worry about it and go back to work and keep working. So I haven't been doing a hell of a lot, to be honest.
Is your family on the Gold Coast, or
they're in Townsville still? So occasionally we fly each other down, and I'm going back there in another 10 days.
Yep.
So I'll go back up there for about 5 days in another 10 days, and then I'll come back. So yeah, it's the Bonza flight thing just killed me a bit. It's killed me emotionally because I'm literally like staying in a mate's shed at the moment until we sort all this other stuff out and transition of the old business and that. So I'm like living skint on no income kind of thing while I'm trying to get one going and get out of the other one. Yeah. So I've got this mezzanine floor in a mate's office, and it's like a bit of a pad. It sounds terrible, like I'm in a tilt panel shed, but it's like literally the raddest man cave of all time. And it's like probably 10 minutes from the from Gold Coast Airport. So I was like catching like a $39 Uber to catch a $69 flight to get home. And now I've got to try and get myself to Brisbane and catch the $700 return to Townsville or whatever. So it's like just changed the whole game, especially like in context of what I'm going through at the moment and what's happened over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm just constantly just digging a pit deeper and deeper. But I'll get to build a track somewhere one day.
Yeah, but you learn from all these experiences, though, John. So
yeah,
everything's a learning experience, you know, and it's good to see that you're doing super well, man. And like, you know, life is full of ups and downs and we like touch on those sort of things as we go along with the podcast here, and it really is open slather. And we are coming up to time in a little while, guys. Pretty shortly. So
good having a chat anyway, boys.
So yeah,
thanks for having us on.
It was great. Great having you on there, John. And like, you really do have a very interesting lifestyle, and have been through some pretty damn well good experiences as well. So, yeah, thank you very much for coming on to the show. I mean, we might as well wrap it up here, I guess.
We do have the questions 3 that we need to ask.
Oh, John. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
So first, what's your favorite Metallica song, John?
One.
Mine too. This is the second guest. Our last guest said one as well.
Yeah.
Great song.
Yeah, it was that the war sounds in the background that got me as a kid, and that was probably the most shocking, I think, and it's stuck with me forever.
Yeah.
I just can't let that one go.
Good choice, Nathan. You want to hit the next question?
Oh, what was the next question again?
Oh, come on, mate. So when you cook a steak, do you flip once, or do you continually flip until it's cooked?
I'm a once flipper on a timer.
Good choice. Good choice. because we know what happens if you continually flip.
Continually flippers, you can flip off. That's
You
it.
can flip right off.
You are no longer managing this barbecue. Your day is over.
So the third question I change it up depending on the guest, but I'm going to go with the global warming one. Thoughts on global warming?
We should have touched on the climate, so yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think global warming?
I think it needs some better documentation to support it, but there is impact. There's definitely impact.
Yeah.
Basically, do you think
I just
global
think
warming is an actual
the wrong
thing?
way, maybe is a better way to put it.
Is it an actual thing, or is it just a cycle of?
Yeah, well, see, I'm about cycles, and like obviously with air conditioning, I measure ambient temperatures daily for the last 20-something years. So, everyone says it's hotter and it's more humid and it's this and it's that. And yeah, okay, we do get those days, and we also get colder ones. And
yeah,
I just don't know where it's all going. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I can't see it after monitoring it every day when I go to, like, sometimes 8 times a day, sometimes once. I always look at the ambient and I look at the relative humidity and I work out, okay, what sort of a day are we about to get hit with the phones? I know that as soon as my phone gets to, as soon as it gets to, say, 35 degrees, I'll get 70 or 80 phone calls in that day, because that's the day that where aircons are designed to a 35-degree ambient. So if you get to above a 35-degree ambient, they starts to push them into areas that they're not designed for. They still work, but they start to struggle. So, like, we use, like, a rule of thumb, a degree over 35 degrees is about a 10% loss of cooling.
Yeah, right.
So effectively, if you get to 38, you're sort of 30% down, which means you can't cool that space effectively anymore, because they're already conditioned to be at 100% sort of thing. When they're at their maximum at 35. So when I take all of those things into consideration, I see how things move. A lot of the time, the thing that we don't take into consideration is airflow, like the movement of the air. And that's normally, if you've got airflow, but you've got those higher temperatures and humidity settings, that will actually make it feel cooler than what it is.
Yeah.
So, but there is a point where the moisture level precedes that, so like it just becomes too moist and you can't really get rid of the heat because it can't evaporate anymore. So just knowing that how volatile those things move, no one is smart enough, in my opinion, to tell me that that's how it works. You know what I mean? There's no way.
I agree.
There is no way in the world.
Yeah, you can't really.
I do believe that there's a lot of things we can do better, just from an impact perspective, rather than trying to control temperature and trying to control the rain and all these types of things. But like, ultimately, as we touched on before, changing something every 5 years as opposed to trying to keep it running for 15 years. Current conglomerate business models, they want you to buy more times. They're trying to squeeze the life cycles down to sort of 6 years instead of 10 years, because they get 2 extra purchases over the total cost of ownership. So, like, there's a lot of that involved in. I've actually been doing a lot of total cost of ownership calculations and stuff this morning, because I'm trying to do a bit of a put a sales pitch together to get our maintenance clients that the company I bought have lost over the last few years, just with COVID and other things, people reducing budgets and stuff. And I'm now coming back and saying, okay, well, we've just had like a bumper year from a fact that as soon as we got those hot days, you couldn't get product, you couldn't get parts, you couldn't get like all these other things that we were looking for. So the manufacturers even ran out of stock. Like, so no one obviously is maintaining the gear. So we've had a spike in CapEx, which is purchasing of new equipment, purchasing of parts, and trying to keep those things running, got tapped out as well, because everyone's been like withholding their budgets. So yeah, it's interesting how it all kind of comes together. But yeah, that there is I think such thing as global warming, but the impact that they're saying I think we have on it is not as easy as it sounds.
Yeah.
That's-
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on board today.
Cheers, boys.
Yeah,
John?
thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
guys.
Great
Okay.
chat.
Next time we'll try not to make it so serious and we'll crack some more jokes.
Yeah.
See you, boys.
No, we do
Why
have a
so,
serious
why
side
so
to it.
serious?
Got the serious chat out of the road. The heart attack's done.
That's it.
We can move on. Thanks, boys.
That's it.
No worries.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks a lot.
Laters.